call the regular council meeting of May the 8th to order. Before we even get into approval of the agenda, I just want to comment on our missing councillors. Councillor Adey has a personal health matter that he's away dealing with, and he regrets that he can't be here this evening. Councillor Cunningham may be joining us. His intention was to join us by video chat. He is already up in Dawson Creek attending the NC North Central Local Government Association meeting, which a few of us will join up there. But there was a meeting with Northern Health today. We wanted to make sure we were represented at that meeting, so he's there. And Councillor Niche texted to say for the first time in 7.5 years, he's missing a meeting. It's a broken streak, but he just couldn't avoid it, and so he is not here this evening. With that, there's an agenda in front of you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Skelton Morvan, Councillor Randawa. Any additions or deletions? Hearing none. I'm hearing.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. We will look, please, to remove.
Yes.
Item 6H.
That's one of the
that is the liquor license amendment for 243 3rd Avenue.
Okay. All right. If there are no other additions or deletions, all in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We now move on to public comments regarding the agenda items. And if there's anything on the agenda to which you'd like to speak to, you are more than welcome to come up and take a position right here. And so go ahead. You're the first hand going up, so come on up. You just need to turn on the microphone, identify yourself so that people at home know. Have a seat there. It's easier for people to pick you up on the microphone that way.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Kent Orton, and I'm one of the partners in Port City Spirits. We have an item on the agenda tonight to approve a lounge license for our property on 801 Fraser Street. So I just wanted to comment on what we intend to do there, which is create a space for locals and cruise ship passengers alike to come and enjoy local made cocktails with ingredients that we've sourced from the Great Bear Rainforest. And we intend on kind of putting quality first rather than quantity, as we see kind of a gap in the market in the nightlife. So we're sensitive to some of the discussion around noise in the area, because we understand that there are a number of residences up on Borden Street, but we also have a short-term rental above the space. So we're cognizant of that, and we're doing our best to manage it. We don't think it's going to be a problem. Yeah, just wanted to get that out there and talk about why we're doing it and what we hope to bring to the city. Because with my experience as an owner in Wheelhouse, we've been able to get a lot of community support and actually bring revenue in for the city over time. And I can see the potential for that happening with this endeavor as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Just for those of you that many of you have not experienced this before, it's not a question and answer time. So just because council's not asking a question doesn't mean anything, okay? It's just your opportunity to make a comment on what's coming up in the agenda. Anybody else want to come speak? Come on forward. And I just also, because it's possible this evening we have a variety of opinions on similar matters. I don't know. I want to make sure that this is a safe place for everybody to speak. And so, and not that I'm anticipating any challenges, but I just like to say that whenever there's a number of people in the room. So we absolutely discourage any applause or acknowledgement of one particular view over another. It needs to be a safe place where everybody can make their comments known. Thank you. Introduce yourself. Hit your button there so that the red light. There you go.
Okay, thank you. My name is Barbara Kuhl. I'm a resident here at Prince Rupert, and I appreciate very much the opportunity to come and speak to you. Mayor and councillors. And I'm also here to speak about the application for the amendment to have a lounge for 35 seats at the Port City Spirits on 801 Fraser Street. And I'm a retired speech language pathologist. I've worked in the community for 10 years as a professional with preschool children and their families, um, making many visits to the Friendship House for one thing. So anyway, I just wish to express my strong objection. I'm kind of taking from a letter that I also sent to the councillors, but I just kind of like to read it for the record that I do have a strong objection to the application to establish a lounge area for 35 people to imbibe hard liquor right across the street from a preschool, active preschool. And I noticed in the application, the proponents are asking for the hours to be beginning at 10 o'clock. So, I mean, that's preschool hours, 10 in the morning. I'm speaking on my own behalf and not as a designated representative for any organization or group or anything, but I am well acquainted with the variety of child and family services that are offered through the Friendship House. And furthermore, further down the block is the community North Coast Community Services Society, and they also offer a number, quite an array of services for social service needs. And then at the end of the block, of course, is the Salvation Army Soup Kitchen. So that is an area where a lot of vulnerable people are attracted to get assistance, to get helps that they need. And I think that, that we all recognize that. We all are familiar with the community and see that for ourselves on a daily basis. So I just feel that is really out of touch to have to put an enterprise like this right in the midst of that area. In the few discussions I've had in the short interval since the newspaper notice on Thursday, I've also heard the concerns about noise in the past when the Belmont was in operation, and I think it was the Empress also. In those days when there was a lot more alcohol in that area, then there was also the rowdiness or whatever, good time noises, but late into the night that was a disturbance. But I can't really speak to that from personal experience for sure. So I know I raised 3 successful adults, or I raised my children to successful adults, but I'm the first one to say I didn't do it alone. And they had a good father who had a lot of input, but we really kept our tabs on where the kids were, what were the influences, like from day one, and especially in the preschool years. They're so important. And they now, as parents, are very active in their own schools for their preschool children and the elementary age, and that's great to see. And I just think, again, it's the community that also supports the development of the children, and so we each have a responsibility in that regard to do our part to build the best citizens we can, and it's so important in the preschool years. I'm a big preschool proponent because that's what was my main professional involvement. I just would make a second very brief objection to the fact that the comment period was so short. So, the paper came out on Thursday. I picked it up on Friday or Saturday, and I saw it. I was okay, wow, I need to be thinking about this. But mostly what I've done is delayed until today, just because I had other things. So I did contact a few people, but I could definitely contact a lot more that I feel would be on side with this, and just see there's always two sides, but I would like to ensure that more people that are child advocates would see this and see that it's just it doesn't make sense, especially when they're asking to start at 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's preschool hours. And as far as cruise passengers, yes, this year we have 15 ships coming in. But anybody who's been on a cruise knows that those people have absolutely many opportunities for a good experience of drinking, of all kinds of opportunities there as they're watching the beautiful rainforest go by, on their cruise. So I don't object to a wine or to a distillery as a business operation. That's not my problem. My problem is definitely with the location. So leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Anyone else that would like to come forward and address council on any matter that's on the agenda this evening? Come on forward. You push your button there. There we go. Thank you. Oh.
Hello? There we go. Hello, my name is Paula Gase. I'm not here in any professional capacity whatsoever. I'm not here on any other citizen, and I'm not here for the proposed tasting room on Fraser Avenue. I'm not here for the owners. I am here as a neighbor. I'm actually pretty close. I'm one of the few people that could pretty much see where it's being put in from my window. My thoughts is it's a tasting room. Now, I suppose one can blur the lines with bar, but I've been to many tasting rooms in Canada doing gin and down on the lower mainland and in Ontario. And they're very classy places. I've never been in a tasting room that wasn't a very kind of upscale, classy place. And seeing the folks connected with it, I suspect they're going to make it a very classy place. I also live in the area. I mean, I see businesses. Some businesses closed. I see rubble. I see many things, and I think this is great for the neighborhood. If somebody wants to invest and spruce that neighborhood up, I think there's an advantage to that. I see all the stuff about development in Prince Rupert and what we want to make it as a destination, and I think it's great that a nice place can be done, and I think it's definitely a destination for folks. I don't know. When I go to a small place and I hear there's a distillery, I like checking it out. And we know one of the owners, is connected with a great establishment in town that's part of a destination. So they know what they're doing. So I really support it, and I think it will beautify the neighborhood, and the neighborhood needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead. There you go.
Hello, my name is Terry Salka, Council, Mayor. I speak in opposition to consideration for the liquor license amendment. There's a number of things. The application is kind of vague, and it talks about a lounge. having some experience in the liquor industry, a lounge is not a tasting bar. And I've been in places where they have tasting bars. Generally, it's a long bar. It might have a couple dozen seats there, and you taste the different drinks. A lounge is where you have a whole bunch of people sitting at tables. Um, it doesn't specify how big of a lounge this request is for. It could be 25 people, could be 35 people, 45 people, 60 people.
I think it was 35. Yeah, but continue.
So that's a big difference between a lounge and a tasting bar. Now, right across the street, we have a daycare center, and the proponents are going to be opening this up at 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, the daycare center runs, I think, till 5. And there is people in that area that will take advantage of going into this tasting bar lounge and have drinks. And one of the things that also comes to my mind, it's a distillery, and the application was about a year ago, if my memory serves me right, and nothing has been acted upon, and everybody just kind of be sitting on their hands. So the other things that kind of jump out at me is the parking. If anybody goes down in that area right now, it's pretty hard to get parking space if you're dropping off kids, or if you want to go to the glass store, Always Glass, or what the heck?
It could be on screen. Councillor Cunningham, welcome. You may need to mute your mic.
I've been having trouble here. I've been watching the meeting.
He's successfully
But,
filmed himself.
couldn't zoom in, I guess. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm on my phone now.
Okay,
Okay.
he's straightened out. So you kind of put me off track here now.
Yeah.
The other question is food going to be served there? And I understand that there is also a request for off sales. If that's the case, there is a bylaw on the books where it prohibits not off sales, but sales of liquor within a kilometer of each other. That bylaw hasn't been changed; it's been tabled to allow new businesses. I think it was up for discussion a couple months ago, where there was new businesses would be exempt from having to provide parking space. So that's tabled. That hasn't been acted on. And I also understand that there's a B&B on the upper level, and distilleries tend to blow up, just like illegal cannabis places tend to go up in smoke too. So the last thing is I question whether this property, this building meets the building code, the fire requirements, and the electrical requirements. And one of the concern is there's only one way in and one way out, whether there's a secondary exit out of the facility. And yeah, is there provisions for a sprinkler system in the operation, considering that it's a distillery and you're dealing with high level alcohol products. So in ending, I speak against the proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come on forward?
Do I just press this? Okay. Do I have to hold it down? No, it stays
Nope.
down.
Nope.
My name, Mayor and Council, my name is Ray Peterson. I'm one of the shareholders or investors or partners in the distillery that we've been spent over the last few years been putting together and planning. And the reason we started this project was we were at a seminar down south, and there was this kind of talk about, you can always say they should do something, but really at the end of the day, it's you are they, and if you don't do it, then who's going to do it? And there's a discernible lack of social activity. If you want to go out and have a few drinks in this town, like the crest gets kind of boring after a while, right? It'd be nice to have diversity and more places to go, and a lot of people say the same thing. So we took it upon ourselves to, find a building and get that building ready up to fire code. Spent a lot of money on professional engineering firms to make sure that it met with all of the provincial codes for fire. And we have gone through and been developing recipes for local North Coast products that we can say this is unique in the world to us, and we're putting this into the market through a licensing program with BC Liquor Commission. And the reason we're interested in amending our license to make it a lounge license is, the fact is, not everybody wants to drink distilled spirits. Some people might want to have a beer or a glass of wine as well, and we wanted to offer that opportunity to people who came to town, say from a cruise ship. They brought their wife, and the wife wants a glass of wine. Well, that would be nice too, right? So that was kind of our thinking behind it. And definitely, I can tell you with a great amount of certainty, we're not interested to be open at 10 a.m. every morning across from a preschool. The only reason we're asking for that provision is on the off chance that we have a big cruise season and there's some cruise ships in with short windows. We'd like to be able to open our business to them during those hours. We're very much focused on a weekend business and an evening business, and even then a few nights a week. So we're not like, oh, let's be open 10 in the morning and sell booze in front of a preschool. It's not at all what we're thinking about. It's an evening venue with the opportunity for us to be open to our American friends when they come here on cruise ships. And so that's kind of our plan. So
Great.
thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come?
Is this a good time?
Yes, absolutely. This is the only time. As long as it's a matter on the agenda, it's your time.
Mayor, Council, thank you. This relates to item number 6E on the agenda.
If you sit, the mic is on, but it will be picked up better if you sit. And
Number 6E.
you're probably used to standing in your previous
I would
profession.
like, please,
Sorry, and you need to just identify yourself.
Paul Johnston,
Thank
I'm
you.
the applicant. I would like, please, to be able to build a shed in my backyard. If you look at the survey certificate that's appended as part of the package, you have to understand that the lane is actually, well, not legally, but in reality, that is Sherbrooke Avenue. All the homes on the lane face the lane. The portion that's shown as Sherbrooke Avenue is not developed and never will be developed. It's a cliff with a drop off and a big gulch that eventually leads to Hayes Creek. So the location of the proposed shed is indicated on the survey. I now find out, well, in reality, my backyard is another 30 feet past that boundary. Past the boundary that reads Sherbrooke Avenue. That's garden and lawn. I now find out it's not legally my property. So the result of my proposal is that I'm encroaching onto a street to the extent of approximately 200 square feet. I don't see that being a problem. The street will never, ever be developed. I guarantee you that. Of course, there would be an encroachment agreement registered against the title, which would say that, I'm allowed to encroach for as long as you don't need it for any reason. One of the councillors mentioned there's a problem with liability. I'll give an indemnity agreement with bonding if you want. I even offered to buy the property from the city. But somebody's got it in their bug that this is a street and this presents a real problem. I don't see what the problem is. I'm sorry. I've spent a year on this matter, dealing with the city. I have a good reason for wanting to build the shed.
it's for storage. After about 50 years in private practice in Prince Rupert, I've had to retire, but I must keep my office and all the files for 10 years. That's at one time that office held 6 lawyers. That's a lot of paperwork to store. So that's what I'm asking, please, is permission to occupy about 200 square feet of your property, but which, if you looked at the home, appears to be already my backyard. Someone may say, I think one of the planners would say, well, why can't you build it out on the right where it says parcel C? I don't want to build it there because it will deter from the aesthetics of the home. Someone said, well, why don't you push it down more and then you won't have a problem? I don't want to do that because this portion at the bottom of the survey is hilly, and I would rather access this shed or garage from the portion that's marked parcel C, because that's paved already and that's a driveway. Okay, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to approach council? Come on forward.
Didn't have the button before. I have it now.
Oh, no, you turned it off.
Oh, there.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Pamela Rouse, and thank you for letting me speak this evening too. I am speaking about property taxes, the 12.5% property taxes that have been addressed, and there have been, I believe, 2 public abilities for people to speak on that, and I am just taking this opportunity to speak on it now. I have both of my parents are seniors, and I know quite a few seniors in town because I actually assist with cleaning for them and such things. And I am going to speak on their behalf as well, because it is a matter of the tax hikes being extremely high in one quick instance, and that was quite unexpected. And it isn't to kibosh any proposals or things that we have to move forward with in Prince Rupert, because most certainly we do need to have roads done and the infrastructure fixed and all of those types of things. So I never want to assume that I would speak any of this in ignorance, but these amounts are quite a lot to swallow. And I think it's been a little difficult for the people of Prince Rupert to speak up for some things, because it just seems like it doesn't kind of matter which area we're all moving into. It seems that hope has been a deterrent for many people because so many things have been so negative. And although we all realize we have a lot of work to do here in Prince Rupert and things have to get done, I mean, I did notice that even on the budget, you know, we're doing that $1.7 million expenditure for the CN building, and I realize that some of that's on grants. I don't know how much the city as the taxpayers are having to put forth with that, because it really wasn't quite clear. And also for the public works building, for the $2 million that has to be done, I would be the first to say that I'm ignorant on the part of understanding what that infrastructure is like for that public building. Hands down, I would say that. But if that infrastructure could be held off for a few more years, because it is at a $2 million cost to the taxpayers as well, and of course we may need it for our city, but if it's able to hold that off for a couple of more years so we can put that towards our roads for that infrastructure, then maybe that would be something to look at. I'm not sure if that was thought out or if it could be. And if it could, that would be a real great benefit, because we can only do so much work on the roads in one given year with the season that we have. So with the amount that we get and how that gets spent, if we can only do a certain amount of it, then why must it be such a huge jump? I had a person quite ignorantly speak to me and tell me, you know, well, it's only going to cost the senior citizen, you know, about $100 or $150 more. You know, I don't know. We all go to the supermarkets. We all see how people are hurting. We all see on the Facebook garage sales that people are selling things just to make their mortgage payments. This is a real reality. I've been out there speaking with people, and there is some serious hardship here in Prince Rupert. There is right now at DP World, The amount of work that they have had in the past 2 months has fallen so drastically, and none of us can be ignorant to the fact of that. And some of these BC assessments, granted that was a 15% tax and it came down because of City West, but even at a 12.5, a lot of these people have just bought these new homes and they are not working. And they were really on a very big, happy high in regards to moving forward and being part of the community with what they've been doing. So now those assessments have come out, and rather than that being a $270,000 home, that assessment has now come out to about $530,000. Some of them $640,000. And you're already looking at people that are having a struggle in their bank accounts and their bank pocket to be able to get food, gas, paying all of their bills, even with the hike of the hydro bills, which are astronomical. Now, sure, there are a lot of people who are sitting in some great jobs here in Prince Rupert, but there are a lot of people with those great jobs that are not working right now. And there are a lot of people who have been terminated from positions by a federal government that are still struggling to be able to maintain, to keep a roof over their head. And this is real cause happening here in Prince Rupert. And I would just like the city to be aware of it for everybody here. Because it isn't about saying progress isn't possible or the things that we have to do. By all means, we do all love our community. You're completely right about that, Mayor. And on a personal level, for being able to take those costs, I also heard you say that as well, too. It's never to negate any of it, but it is to speak on the people's behalf of Prince Rupert. I don't need to have a whole bunch of them behind me because people have been sharing. And I'm more than happy to come and sit in front of all of you and share these real truths that are happening. We have so many senior citizens that have had to stay in their homes because we have nowhere for them. Their assessments for their homes that have gone up, even with that deduction that they get. I really hope that you can all review that before you accept this 12.5% tax hike and really take a lot of these things into consideration because we all live here. And I don't believe there is not one of us and not one of you all sitting in this room or behind me or out there that realize that all of these things are really happening here. And we love our community for that. Hardship is something that we don't want to see becoming a downfall because people will be losing their homes, especially economically if it doesn't pick up. And if there is one thing that I do want to say, I realize that we say that we have candidates who are speaking in federal office in order to receive grants for us here in Prince Rupert for our roads and all of that. Now, again, I speak to economic benefit. The federal government has been able to put a lot of that money, bring it in here for economic gain towards them. They have utilized this infrastructure in Prince Rupert for years, knowing this. You have these big rigs on these roads before that connector road got done, and I guarantee you there's 8,000 pounds more on those roads from these trucks that have gone through here. Now, the federal government somehow needs to take some of that into consideration, because if they're going to use the infrastructure of Prince Rupert, and now that they've built their own, great that you put us on the map as a corridor, but we all live here. All of us do. And that's why I think it's really imperative to try and wait on the federal government, and not even wait. I wouldn't even use that word, wait, because everybody's been waiting. Look at how long we waited for water. And again, that was another back influx from the federal government, knowing what we've been going through. They've known that all along. And yeah, I would like to say shame on them. I would. But what will that do? All we can do is have people to go sit in that federal building and speak on behalf of Prince Rupert, but we're the ones here who need to address these real situations for our community. So thank you so much, all of you, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a note as you step away, not that it's the panacea for everybody, but I never want to miss an opportunity to let people know, if you are a senior and you want to make a different choice, you can actually defer 100% of your taxes at a very low interest rate. I think it's about 1 or 2%. The provincial government has a program, and if you go to the provincial, we can make that available anyway. So now, eventually, when the home is sold or, you know, whatever, that loan has to be paid back. So it's not like you never pay the taxes. But for a lot of seniors, it's a really viable option. And I know some of it just, they can afford to pay it and choose to do it that way just the same. So that is helpful for seniors. And also I think it applies to young families as well. So
Well, that's really wonderful because I really believe that that education isn't out there. We don't have people going knocking on the doors on behalf of these senior citizens to calm them down.
Yeah.
And it still goes without speaking to the economic downfall in turn for all of the other citizens of Prince Rupert who really are, by employment, running into extreme hardship here. Just to share.
Yep. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to? Oh, I don't know. We don't have a. Oh, come on back for a second time. I'm feeling generous tonight. I'll encourage you to be brief.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I didn't know that we'd have an opportunity to talk about the budget again. And I've spent a lot of hours, and thank you very much for bringing it up. Kind of woke me up. Two things. One is there's a fair amount of money, almost $4 million is going to be spent on equipment, and it's going to be financed through borrowing. My understanding of the rules is that when the city borrows money, it has to go to referendum. That was never discussed during the last 2 weeks. The second thing, and I've read that budget, I don't know how many times, and it looks like the utilities are going up again, which means the garbage and the water. Even though a guy like myself, I've been spending close to $500 a year buying water at the dry cleaning place because we don't know whether our water is good today or bad tomorrow or vice versa. But there's nothing in that budget tells us how much the utilities are going to go up again. I remember when I first bought my house, the utilities were like $300 a year. We're now up to $1,500, and looks like it's going to go up again. And the discrepancy is that where you have seniors living in a house that are paying $1,500 for utilities, where 3 houses down the street, there's a duplex or a fourplex, and they're paying the same amount, which is not fair. But I would really like to know how much the utilities are going up again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come? Again, I just want to make clear to people the lack of a direct answer is just this isn't that type of question and answer. It's just an opportunity to comment. Perhaps later when we're going through the budget, some answers will pop out. Any other comments? I got to tell you, I love this process, this democracy in action. So thank you all very much for being here and being part of it. If there are no other people that want to come and speak to council, we will continue then. On to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have council minutes from the special meeting of April the 24th. And you got an amended version today in amongst these. So there was a resolution missing that has been inserted. So minutes of the regular meeting of April 24th and minutes of the committee of the whole from April the 24th, correspondence from NCLGA with regards to the annual report and resolutions. An organization called Be Amazing under correspondence. There are 3 reports, one from the planner with regards to Rupert Plays, encouraging people, still an opportunity for round 2 now of engagement. So if you want to have a look at that, a development activity report from the planning manager and a report from the fire chief with regards to the monthly fire rescues. The recommendation is that all the items on the consent agenda be accepted as noted and filed. Councillor Randhawa, Councillor Forster, any questions or comments? Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine is in respect to the report from the fire chief. I've had quite a few people from our community reach out to me, not understanding how our hiring processes are. Are they done with a panel of multiple people? Is it one person? how is it being done to ensure that it's fair and equitable for everyone that's applying?
Dr. Buchan.
Your Worship, Fire Chief is here and can speak to in an overview of the hiring process.
Chief, do you want to come to the microphone?
Thank you very much, through your worship. Yes, we are going through a hiring process right now. In general, the steps that we have a 5-step process to do when we're looking at candidates. Initially starting with a first interview that goes to followed up with a fitness assessment that has been it's kind of duplicated in Edmonton used to use it, and also West Kelowna. That is, we're supported in that part through a local physiotherapist that oversees that for us, because she can see things that that we don't necessarily see in a candidate. After that, there is a written assessment and a physical function assessment, skills function, and then that's followed up with a final interview. Successful candidates after that also have to pass a security screening, psychometrics evaluation, and provide proof of clean driver's abstract and certification. When I got hired a long time ago, the process was much simpler. Even having people go through the academies was relatively new back then. At the time, I didn't even have my certification. It was something that I got in after I was hired as a part-time firefighter. So now it is very structured in how we look at candidates. I'm very confident in our assessment, and it is graded through a proper matrix of providing defendable and consistent grading for each individual. So if you have any questions on individual aspects of our recruit process, and please ask.
Councillor Forsher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering, when I hear that there's the first step is an interview, is it one person in the interview? Is it multiple people of diverse backgrounds? How is that done? Because the question that keeps coming to me is a concern that there's not a lot of diversity on our fire department. And I'm not a supporter of tokenistic approaches. We want the best candidates to be protecting our community. But how are we reaching out to different people to ensure that we are getting that diversity? Again, without a tokenistic approach. So is it just one person interviewing, or is it a few different people from?
Good questions. Chief.
Through
You can
through
just
yourself.
talk right to me.
Currently, the interviews are conducted through myself and our deputy chief. There are other departments in the province that have hiring committees set up with the union, so that there's union participation in it. We haven't got to that point with our union, so it's simply at this point it's the two of us that do that assessment. When we're looking for candidates, initially we're looking for qualifications and experience, life experience, and basically have a conversation with the candidate to see why they'd be interested in coming to Prince Rupert, and or why they want to work for the City of Prince Rupert Fire Rescue Department. If they meet the minimums in that interview process as far as credentials, and if they interview well enough, then they get invited to the second stage, which is the fitness component.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor.
Sorry, one last question. I've been in interviews before where I've done terribly, but I don't always know that until I get feedback afterwards. I'm wondering, does the city or the fire department or any of our groups ever give people feedback on maybe blind spots they have when they're interviewing so they can improve for the next time?
Chief Beckwith.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. We extend that offer to people that are not successful.
And yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Okay, back to the matter at hand, which, and these were appropriate questions at the matter at hand, but to the approval of the consent agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Councillor Cunningham, I'll rely on you to absolutely scream if you feel like I'm passing you by on something.
Yeah, okay, I can't find my little
Okay,
hand to
Hiram,
put
that's
up.
perfect.
I'm on my phone.
Could be the best meeting ever. No, stop it, Herb. All right, reports. 6A, report from the Manager of Communications with regards to engagement and social development with a recommendation that Council supports an application from the city to the NDIT Northern Healthy Community Capacity Fund Program for $228,000 over 3 years to support a contract person for a social development and Indigenous relations coordinator position. Can I have a motion? Councillor
moved.
Skelton
I'll
Morvan,
second it.
Councillor Randawa. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the Manager of Communications with a recommendation that Council supports an application from the city to the NDIT Marketing Initiatives Program for $4,300 in funding to support the renewal of the city's website and promotional material. Can I have a motion? Councillor Skelton Morvan, Councillor Forster. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the Chief Financial Officer with regards to the 2022 audited financial statements. Recommendation that Council accepts the 2022 audited financial statements as presented. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Forster, Councillor Skelton Morvan. Dr. Buchan, anything to report on this?
Nothing further to add, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns, Council? I read through, it's a lengthy document, but it's an informative document. I appreciate most of us lay people have a harder time reading financial statements. They don't read like a book, but there's a lot of information contained in those pages. They're available to you as members of the public. I encourage you to have a look. With that, all in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the planning manager with regards to development variant permit, and we actually have a number of variance permits in front of us. This one is for 1215 Omanika, and with a recommendation that council proceed with the statutory notification process for the development variance permit application 2303. Can I have a motion? Councillor Randawa, Councillor Forster. Any discussion? Any information we need? No? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the planning manager with regards to development variance permit number 2304 for 630 Sherbrooke Avenue with a recommendation that council not proceed with the statutory notification process for the development variance permit application 2304 and deny the application. Can I have a motion to that effect? Or a different motion? But
I'd like to make a motion. Can you hear me?
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to work with Mr. Johnson on this. I went and looked at it, and he's right. Sherbrooke Road, as we call it, is a cliff. And his backyard butts up to that cliff. And then it goes right down into Hayes Creek. It's just a bog down there.
Okay, Councillor, sorry, just before you keep going, let's see if we've got a seconder. I got a seconder from Councillor Forster. Continue, sorry.
And I think that we should be looking at either selling them the property, putting some covenant on it or something so we can go ahead with this project.
All right. We've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any questions, discussion? Councillor Forster.
I would just also like through that process to understand a bit more about the legal liabilities to doing the 10-year thing, like holding it for 10 years, and if we need to do it, all of the different suggestions that were made today, the liability waivers, all of that, could that be done?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Buchan, have you got any comment for council?
Your Worship, I would like to suggest a slightly different motion.
Okay.
Directing staff to work with the applicant it doesn't really give direction as to what it is you're looking for. I think you're looking for a report back on that delves in a little more detail on whether or not that road right of way needs to be retained unencumbered, and we can add in some discussion about the liability aspect. So we can take a closer look at whether or not it needs to be retained for the future, and whether or not there's some interim measure that could be looked at, and bring back some options to council.
Is that an acceptable amendment for the mover, Councillor Cunningham?
Yes, it is. I just want to see this project go forward. I don't see I don't see the reason why we're denying it personally. I went and looked at it physically, and I see no reason why it should be denied. I just think that what Dr. Buchan has said, it fits the bill, that we can work with the Mr. Johnson and see what we can work out. I don't see it being an obstacle.
All right. And it's, I saw you nodding, Councillor Forster. It's acceptable to you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Moving on to the report from the planner for development variance permit. The council proceed with the statutory notification process for the development variance permit application 2305. I'd entertain a motion. Councillor Randhawa, Councillor Forster. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We now move on to a report from the planning manager with regards to development variance permit number 2307 for 1300 Hayes Cove Avenue, that council proceed with the statutory notification process for development variance permit application 2307. Motion, Councillor Skelton Morven, Councillor Forster. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We then move on to a report from the corporate administrator with regards to liquor license amendment, with the recommendation that council resolves change the hours of liquor service at 243 3rd Avenue. Oh, that's the one that's being pulled. Sorry, it's gone. I'm reading something that doesn't exist in the agenda any longer. Thank you very much. We have a report from the corporate administrator with regard to the liquor license amendment. The council resolved to support the liquor primary new outdoor patio license to enable a lounge area endorsement at 2209 Seal Cove Road as requested. I'm going to go, I get a mover in a second. Councillor Skelton Morven, Councillor Forster. Dr. Buchan.
Your Worship, I'd like to speak in general about the liquor license referral process rather than to these specific applications. First point I'd like to make is these reports are not about land use. They're not about the location. That's already been decided with council zoning bylaw and the public process involved in determining what uses are appropriate. This is a referral from the province of British Columbia for council to comment on liquor licenses, and because it's a referral, this isn't a decision of council. Council does not decide whether or not the liquor license is given out. The province does that. Now, there are options here, and in general, and some communities participate in the province's approval process, and in fact take on expenses with time and staff time and advertisements and process. Some communities will look at them one at a time and may decide to support, or maybe decide to oppose, or may decide to simply not comment. And other communities may well decide to not participate at all, and adopt through policy resolution to simply direct staff to respond with no comment on all such applications, because they are a provincial decision. So that's something that council can consider at this point in time, whether or not they wish to simply let the province do their own process and consider the merits and the concerns or support that they would otherwise do in their own process if they didn't get the municipality to take on a chunk of their process. So I'd like to have that in council's mind as they look at the first report, whether or not they actually want to continue entertaining discussion about responding to a referral comment in this manner.
Council, new piece of information for you. It would not be inappropriate to entertain a motion if you want to approach it on a different policy approach that we, if you want, just have a policy where we don't participate in the public engagement process at all. If somebody wants to do that, I'll guide you through it. Otherwise, there's a motion in front of us. Absolutely.
So what Dr. Buchan is saying basically is no matter what we do, the province can override it anyway. But we have control with occupancy and business licenses in the final say of this. Is that basically what's going on?
Dr. Buchan.
Your Worship, ultimately, with respect to a liquor license, that is the province's decision, regardless of what the municipality says. We have a business license, which a process which within which licenses will be given out if the applicant satisfies the conditions, which are appropriate land use, appropriate building. Whether or not the fire inspection may be done. So there's a process that we look at to make sure that a business can operate within the regulations. During the building permits, building permit process, we would look at other things to make sure that, such as parking, to make sure that there is adequate parking per the bylaw.
Councillor Forster, I know that you had a similar question. Go ahead.
I'm just percolating.
Yep. No, I'll give you a moment to. Listen, can I give you a list of options? How's that sound? We could proceed to comment on these, or we could proceed one by one and say we'll make no comment on them, and save for another day a broader policy that says we'll either participate, won't participate, or whatever. Or if you're feeling so inclined, we could do something right here, right now. Councillor.
Thank you. Sorry, Jetlag, it's taking a minute. My question is would then people in the public be able to comment to the province? Like, how, as an average everyday citizen, let's say somebody wanted to open a business and have a liquor license, how would Terry the citizen know?
Dr. Buchan.
Your Worship, I can't answer that particular question with certainty. It's the province's process, the province's decision. So if they think that public opinion is important, and if we don't do it, I would presume that they would, but I can't tell you that they do.
So again, an option might be to deal with these this evening, or not. Like, I'm not trying to presuppose what council wants to do, but and save that broader policy decision to when that kind of information can be part of making that decision. Or you may feel strongly enough to make a different motion here this evening. Right now, we do have a motion on the floor in front of us. Go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was just clarifying, and that's to support it at this time.
Correct.
Based on
the
that.
motion that's on the table right now, moved and seconded, is to support the liquor primary new outdoor patio license at the Seal Cove location. Councillor Randhawa.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clear one thing. Like, let's say everybody support this license, and then the province still can deny that one?
Correct. Correct.
So,
We are.
So what's the other option you said? We wait for the province to finish first, then we go.
No. We are a tick box in their process, and so as they go through their process, one of the things they just automatically do is they send it to us for comment, much like a land referral on I don't think we get many of them, but the regional district gets them all the time. Land referral questions just automatically part of the process, and that is, but they're fully within their rights to proceed with or without us. Councillor Forster.
Thanks. Just a question. because to me, if it's just a tick box that we're basically doing, to me that seems not very useful. But I would want to make sure that there is going to be a process for people to comment from the community. So my question is, if we approve any of these tonight, when do they come into effect? Because I also don't want to hold businesses up through the process, right? And so to me, it seems like we're missing some information. So deferring the decision on passing that on, we need some information before I could vote on that.
Right. Whereas there's applications in front of you.
Yeah, so if it's going to stop businesses from potentially being able to move forward, I want to sort of know that before I make a decision.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been my experience that once council passes a resolution to support or deny an application, that resolution is uploaded to the provincial website. Generally, within the next 24 hours, information is sent to the business owner. If council supports, then they generally proceed with the approval of the license. That's been my experience. That may or may not be the case with every single one, but we haven't exactly had many of them.
Dr. Buchan.
Yeah, Your Worship, if council, another option for council to consider is dealing with both of these applications tonight and asking for a report back addressing more fully the provincial process.
I think that's the flavor of the day. Okay, so we do have a motion in front of us. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We then move on to report from the corporate administrator with regards to liquor license amendment. That council resolves to support the liquor license amendment to enable a lounge area endorsement at 801 Fraser Street as requested. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Skelton Morven. Is there a seconder? Councillor Forrester. Discussion. Councillor Skelton Morven.
I think some pieces were really highlighted tonight. I think being able to hear some of that perspective is really important. Given my experience and just seeing the Wheelhouse in operation and though folks, it really depends on the ownership of the establishment. I think is really important, and that's a key facet to kind of take in, and also the nature of that establishment. This particular way, and 35 seats is not particularly large, so we're not seeing hundreds of folks piling out onto the streets and different things like that. And a lot of these clarifying factors, and there were some concerns myself that I had with the location at first until those were addressed. And based on tours, and a lot of the times it's more so the experience and not necessarily kind of a binge establishment where folks are going to be piling out onto the streets and things like that in pandemonium. just in my own experience. But for these particular pieces, like I said, I've moved the motion as it stands. But having those key pieces of context, and given that there is folks that have the experience of the operation, but also when they set those intentions and where they're wanting to go with that, and I think that that's really important facets to take in. Although that there has been concerns, and I feel like there's ways that we can kind of work together and collaborate so that those concerns are addressed, so that we're not having those particular same challenges. I mean, we definitely don't want to get into the business of kind of shutting the doors to business and economic development, but we also want to make sure that we're developing and building businesses that help support kind of where we want to go as a community, and that also includes the socioeconomic aspects as well as the social aspect. And I think some of those pieces, and I had a few folks that had contacted me today regarding some of their own concerns about pieces and location and what this might look like and different things like that. I mean, historically, and it's kind of ironic, I mean, there was an establishment that it was like a block behind it prior, which is now a pile of rubble. But there's all those pieces there that was a completely different natured establishment in comparison to something that would be a lounge or a tasting room. The lounge is just essentially language, not necessarily that it's, and more so around what they can serve so it accommodates some of their patrons. So I don't really see too much that kind of conflicts with some of the concerns that have been addressed with myself, either through emails or through phone calls today, and that those have been addressed by the proponent.
Thank you. Councillor Forster, you're the seconder. I'll let you speak next if you'd like to.
Thanks. I appreciate the dialogue we've had tonight because it did address quite a few of the concerns. I too received quite a few phone calls today. And I did some of my own research and reached out to a few of the daycares that have been mentioned to find out if they had any concerns. And they did not raise any for me. I do appreciate the clarification about 10 a.m. not being every day. That for me was actually quite a big one. That it would only be the odd time when there happened to be a tour, which I think is quite a reasonable explanation. Some of the concerns I've had are actually the area and that there are a lot of vulnerable at-risk people. So I'm hoping to learn more about how there's going to be some different mitigation strategies put forth by the business owner. It's not an expectation, it's just something Terry, the person in the community, would like to hear. Thank
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Rondawa, any comment? Okay. Councillor Cunningham, any comment?
Well, the way I'm looking at this is how many complaints have we had or people that are against it with phone calls? I know I've received quite a few phone calls today as well. You know, speaking on what Councillor Skelton Morvan said, you know, we've got to look at both sides of the coin. I kind of think that I would like the people that are the Port City Distillery to actually have a meeting with the public, and I think that could solve most of the problems. But because they seem to solve a lot of them, but you know, when there's that much interest in one project, and that I really think that you know, like Councillor Skelton Morvan said, there's a social economical benefit to this, and there's also a social downside to it. It sounds like so. I really think that we should take a closer look at it. I'm sitting on the fence on it in a lot of ways. You know, I think I like the idea of a destination like that. I don't like the 10 o'clock opening because if it was just for cruise ships, I'd say fine. But by giving them that type of license, they can open whenever they want. You know, they can say one thing and do another. And, you know, so I don't know, like, you know, the Belmont and the Empress were there long before the daycare was there. The daycare is there now, and that's one of the complaints a lot of people have expressed to me today. Plus, there's that area there has you know, high traffic for parking and things like this. I spoke to one of the principals, and he doesn't think parking's going to be a problem. But you know, a 35-seat lounge, if it's full, is going to be significant. You know, I really don't know. Like, I really think we should take a closer look at it, and I would love to see Ray, John, and them have a meeting or discuss this with some of these people and ease their concerns, talking to them individually. I don't think once it gets out there, I think it could be all resolved, and then we've got both sides of the coin happy. But
Councillor Forster.
Just a thought.
Oh, Councillor Rondawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, like I agree with Councillor Cunningham. Like I like to see business open, but I like to clear these some conditions like 10 a.m. only for cruise ships only or every day before, and also the parking situation, like that condition we need to be talk with the owner before we can make any decision.
So just before I go to you, Councillor, I'm going to go to Dr. Buchan, because I think we keep crossing, you know, between what are zoning issues, what are land use issues, what are liquor license issues, and if you could clarify for council, i.e. parking.
Well, and that's a different matter, because land use zoning is not parking. They just happen to be in the same bylaw. But so land use is determined by the zoning bylaw. Council's already decided that. So now it's the liquor license, and you know, the province has asked for your opinion and asked you to do a public consultation, and you're in the middle of that. Parking is required under our bylaw, and you know that has to be addressed before the establishment is opened if it goes ahead.
Completely separate from
yes,
liquor licensing. Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note we haven't heard whether or not any emailed concerns or support was sent in. Have there been any other than the one that I received from Barb, who spoke?
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Aside from the email that's on your desk from Ms. Cool, there was one additional email received in the negative, and you have it on your desk. It should be attached by paperclip. No? I will get that for you.
Here you go.
So it's my understanding then, with the parking issue, that until that's resolved, they can't get an occupancy permit. Is that correct?
Correct. Dr. Buchan's nodding. Yes, that's correct. So parking is dealt with through a completely different process, and there are processes in place for that. One of the options here, Council, is just help us along here, is the ability to defer the motion until the next, postpone until the next council meeting, with some conditions attached to that or not. But if for no other reason, you may want to do that just to allow more public comment, whatever your will is, or we can go directly to a vote. Councillor Forster.
So that was sort of my question about deferring these. Will that impact the business at this point? I think they're still in the process of building. So that's where I just sort of want to make sure I'm not making a decision in haste.
Councillor Skelton-Moore.
Deferring and opening at this point in time with the renovations done and all of those other pieces. Delaying the process it's just delaying. There's ongoing costs that come with that. There's a lot of heavy upfront costs that come with operating a distillery. So for me, just looking at the process like it is, and also just hearing some of those pieces that were addressed in this process, again, it's more so about the experience and folks that are coming in. And when it comes to cruise ship tours, it definitely is not going to be a night in Vegas. It'll be more of a kind of a controlled environment, more so set on the environment, and those that are kind of the connoisseurs going to experience it essentially. And the only reason that the process is kind of more tailored towards a lounge is for folks, as Mr. Peterson had addressed, that it's more so to accommodate those that are not drinking the harder spirits. They might have other options. So essentially, it's just kind of looking at these pieces that I see, again, have been addressed by the proponent. And it really matters when it comes down to ownership, and both Mr. Farrell and Mr. Orton, both having owned establishments and reputable establishments in the community, understand the liquor licensing process and what it takes to run a solid establishment and not have folks piling out into the streets and pandemonium. Again, it really depends on ownership, and this comes from my own capacity working in bar management and as a bartender and different things like that. And for me, just hearing these pieces and that those are addressed in that proponent, and I think for there, it's pretty straightforward to me. So for me, I'd like to sit the motion as it is right now.
Okay, so mover and seconder.
Okay, well,
Councillor Cunningham.
So they can't open until they get an occupancy permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
And right now, if they want to get an occupancy permit with the parking, they got to pay $12,500 per parking place. Is that not correct?
Dr. Buchan.
There are a few options. One is to find and secure parking on a nearby at parcel. Another one is a development variance permit, and the other is to pay cash in lieu.
Okay, so Councillor Cunningham, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this parking thing. If they can't open until the parking's resolved, and we've tabled the parking bylaw until a later date, it doesn't matter if we defer it for 2 weeks or not, because nothing can be done about parking for 2 weeks, and they can't open for 2 weeks.
That's correct. All right, Council. I think you have hit a point where you all know what you want to do, so we need to test that. Is there anybody that's going to make a motion to postpone this decision? Councillor Randhawa. Is there a seconder to the motion to postpone? Let's say to the next meeting. Just said it's not indefinite. Sorry, Councillor Cunningham.
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a mover and go ahead.
Can I make a motion to amend
Oh,
motion
absolutely.
to defer?
Yes, I think you can. I'm going to let you anyway.
I would like to have some parameters about why we're deferring it.
Correct.
So it's not just being deferred and we come back to the next meeting with the exact same information.
Yeah. So did you want to propose some of those now?
I would like to have put on the city website that we will extend the time for public comment.
Okay.
I would like to understand. No, I think that's the only thing I really wanted to do, because I think a lot of the responses we've had today addressed the concerns that I heard.
Okay. Any other thoughts? And you agree with that? Thank you. Councillor Cunningham, you're okay with that?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because then the owners can actually identify anything that's being brought up to us and give solutions to it. It puts it out in the open and it's transparent. I kind of like that idea.
All right. So there is a motion to postpone to next regular council meeting, with the proviso that it be put on the city's website to invite more public comment. That, of course, supersedes the main motion. So all in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Skelton Morvin is opposed. The motion passes. All right, we now move on to bylaws. We have the 2023 5-year financial plan bylaw, number 3517, with a recommendation that council gives fourth and final readings to the 2023 5-year financial plan bylaw number 351723. I'll entertain a motion to that effect. Councillor Randhawa, Councillor Skelton Morvin. Any discussion? It's been well discussed. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We move on to property tax bylaw number 3518/2023 that council gives fourth and final readings to 2023 property tax bylaw number 3518/2023. Councillor Skelton Morvin. Is there a seconder? Councillor Forster. Any discussion? Councillor Forster.
Sorry, I just had a question.
Yep.
The only thing that's still been sort of sitting with me is the new positions.
Yep.
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to reduce the 2.5, I think it is, new positions to just 2, that would only change the budget by about 0.1 or 0.2%, like not enough to make a huge difference. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. Dr. Buchan? Yeah. Partially, one of the effects that we have is that we're so late in the budget approval cycle that even if you hire today, you're not getting a body for a full year, right? And so that mitigates it to some degree. The other piece that is just a simple basic fact of life is there's quite a process to get to putting this bylaw in front of us, and this must by law be submitted to the province by the 13th, I think, of May. So we're down to the final wire here. All right. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Skelton, more.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and I know that there isn't an amendment around staffing, but just for context sake for those at home, those pieces are quite essential for where we're headed and the workload that's being handled right now. The major projects and for us to cut positions creates choke points and puts pressure on our management teams as well as the leadership process. So for me, it's just again in full support of the positions that stand.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We move on to the report from the Chief Financial Officer with regards to loan authorization bylaw 3519 and 3520 with a recommendation that Council introduces and gives first, second, third readings to the Infrastructure Replacement Design Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3419/2023, and that Council introduces and gives first, second, third reading to the Linear Liquid Waste Infrastructure Replacement Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3520/2023. I'd entertain a motion. Councillor Skelton Morvin, is there a seconder? Councillor Randhawa. This might be worth having.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, there's one more piece to the resolution.
Oh, I got to keep going?
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, there we go. I thought it was Anyway, okay. And that council directs staff to proceed with the obtaining the elector, oh, that's right, approved by way of alternate approval process or assent is what that should read. Assent of the electors for each of the loan authorization bylaw number 3519 and number 3520. Okay. You moved it. Seconder Randhawa. All right. Any discussion, comments, or questions?
Yes, through the mayor. The first thing that was raised a little bit earlier tonight was what's the actual cost in dollars going to be to the liquid waste and water on utilities? We're already at we're very high at utilities, and this is just going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back if it's too high. I see the first year 21%, the second year 26%, and then the third year 20%. And then on water and sewer, on table 1 and table 2. So if the chief financial officer could give me some figures as to the individual cost to a resident in dollars and not percentages, I'd appreciate it.
Just to be clear, the chief financial officer will give that to me, and you can listen. But thank you. Dr. Buchan, is there anything you wanted to say?
No, I'll defer to the chief financial officer.
Director Bombin.
Hi, yes, thank you. Through the mayor, I calculated it out afterwards, and which I was anticipating bringing for this Monday meeting anyway. So first, I'll address table 1. So the expected increase for the $5 million apportioned towards water would be $27, and then for the sewer would be $23. And that would be the increase that would help to generate enough revenue to be able to service the debt over 30 years for that $5 million loan. As for the $40 million loan, as mentioned, and this is the big caveat, is that we are going to try everything we can to try and get other money instead of using the full amount of the loan. So the authorization as it stands right now, in the absence of other funding, the worst case scenario is those increases and taken out in what we're calling segments to match up when the works would actually be done, would hopefully buy us the time to be able to find other revenues, or at least in the best case, that's the best case, and the alternative is that we enter into a much better interest rate environment. So in the current interest rate environment, and the worst case scenario with those percentages, year 1 would be a $109 increase, year 2, $163 increase, and year 3, $158 increase. Again, absolute worst case scenario, and none of us are relishing any of this. So, but that is how much it would be in order to service a $2.284 million debt. Annual servicing, for a $40 million loan for 30 years for just that one particular loan.
Right. So a person much wiser than me suggested today that, a good analogy is this is like getting pre-authorized for a mortgage, right? And so it doesn't mean you're going to buy that house or pay that amount of money, but you got to learn or be able to demonstrate to the real estate agent and the bank and everybody else, I'm good to borrow this much money. And obviously when you go shopping, you have every intention of doing everything you can to come in underneath. And we've got a lot of ways that we anticipate we can come in underneath. However, if we had to, what you've outlined today would be what we would have to do if none of those attempts are successful. All right? Is that clear? Is that helpful?
Okay.
Councillor.
Through the mayor, what we're looking at is over a $400 increase in utilities by the third year in the worst case scenario.
Correct. In the worst case scenario.
And if we do get funding from the federal government, would that go directly against this, or would it be used in other ways, like the $65 million from the province is being used? This is on top of that $65 million.
Correct. So this is so that we can so that if the federal government gives us the money, we can participate as we've promised to. And so we will need to look to other sources of money, Resource Benefit Alliance, other things that we're working on to bring this number down. Dr. Buchan, did you have anything else to?
Yes, Your Worship, but and another securing other revenues would allow us to actually direct some of the debt servicing to those new revenues rather than to utilities. So that we have that in our toolkit as well. So we're pursuing many avenues, and I believe some of them will be fruitful to secure that additional revenues.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the explanation about the alternate approval process versus a referendum.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding this right, though, when I read it, I just want to check in. The alternate approval process, people would have 30 days from us passing it today.
Yeah.
And if 10% of the citizens of Prince Rupert
Registered voters,
sent in opposition to the city,
we then have to go to a referendum.
Then we would have to go to a referendum. So people do have an option either way?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just looking at the $40,000 cost for a referendum versus $7,000 to do it this way.
Yeah.
That.
Director Bombin.
Just as a point of clarification, we have to after 3 readings today, then we go ahead and submit the loan authorization bylaw to the province. We have to wait until the province gives their first level of approval before we can start the alternate approval process or the referendum. Okay, so then there's a period of notification to the public. So after the second notification, then the public has 30 days to respond back if it's an alternate approval process. So it's actually we'll just say it won't start for at least 2 months probably. We have to wait for the province to come back. But there's a lot of information that gets posted online in the paper, and there's a couple weeks worth of that to be able to start the process. And then the people can go ahead and have their say.
Councillor Randhawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it looks like $500 on the bills, right? Looks like a lot, but I think we have no choice right now. If we don't get this loan, we can't get any matching grants. So, and we can't fix our infrastructure. So I will support this motion, and I have full confidence on our staff. They can make another revenue from other places and won't cost our citizens.
Any other comment? Councillor Cunningham.
Through the mayor, is this worst case scenario $400 on top of the 5% utility fees that we've been bumping up?
Director Bombin.
Through the mayor, yes, that's correct, because this would only be servicing the debt. That would not cover any of the regular operation costs.
You know, this is putting one hell of a burden on the taxpayers. I know it has to be done in that, but here we are giving them an increase in taxes and then telling them that in the next 3 years, we're going to be charging them another $133 to $140 a year more in utilities. I have faith in our staff in that, but we're going to be looking for miracles to straighten us out. And, getting back to we're looking for money from the federal government to match what the provincial government is giving us, or something thereof.
Right.
Now, if we get that grant from the federal government or grants from them, will that be used to bring down this utility bill, or will it go someplace else and this utility bill and loan will still go through?
Sorry, your question is about if we're successful with the federal government?
Yes. Is that amount coming from the federal government, we're hoping to get because we were successful with the province?
Yeah, no.
Say hypothetically we get, get $50 million from the federal government
Yeah.
in grant towards our infrastructure. Now, is that going to go towards this 50 million or is it, or 40 million, or is it going to be
No.
on top of it?
No. No. So we have a project that is, staff will correct me if I'm out by a million or two, but I think we're at a $205 million project. So $205 million addresses 26.5 kilometers of mission critical water pipe, if you will. We're all worried about what happens in the 3 years that we're working on that system because other pipes will still be blowing. But if the feds come alongside, it allows us to then complete that work. And we have committed to come alongside and say, while we're in those holes, we will do the sewer pipes at the same time and do as much road improvement as we possibly can within that number, so that we're not wasting money by digging up the road once to do water pipes and then some later date when we get money from the feds, go back and dig in the same holes and then go back again when we get more money to repair the roads, right? So what we're saying is for $205 million, we can get the bulk of that work done. Director Pucci, I'm looking at both you and Dr. Buchan, and you can scream and stop me at any point in time. So in order to get, so we got $65 million from the Premier. And again, for anybody that's listening, I've got to tell you, that's such an outsized grant for a community our size. It has never happened in the history of British Columbia. It has certainly never happened in the history of this community to receive a grant that size for a community this size. And it's because the Premier saw that one of Canada's most important pieces of infrastructure was going to possibly be shut down on his watch. And so he stepped forward, and I will be eternally grateful for the faith that he's shown in it. And his money came with basically no strings attached, except that we go spend it on water pipes. That's amazing. And so what we're doing is working with the feds to try to get a similar number. I can't put a hard number on it, but a similar number. How's that sound? And in order to get that, the feds are setting some conditions. And they're saying, all right, what are you putting on the table? And this is what we're putting on the table. We're saying right now, if we had to come up with it, this is the only way we could come up with it right now. And so we're going to do that. I assume we're going to do that. I hope the people empower us to do that. But we are right now working on all the other options to make that not necessary, or at least a lot less necessary, so that it doesn't have to be a $400 increase to utilities. But it's a risk. Like I'm not glossing that over. But it is going to be the reason why Director Pucci and Dr. Buchan are on airplanes, meeting with the right people in the right places. It'll be a reason why I just came back from Victoria with the Regional Resource Benefit Alliance group, because that could be $8 million a year potentially for this community. And by the way, that trip is paid for by another source of revenue, not the taxpayers of Prince Rupert. But honestly, if it takes the taxpayers of Prince Rupert to fund that effort and it produces that kind of money, I think it was Director Bauman that said that's pretty good return on investment, you know. So I hope that's clear. Not only I think all of council understands, but for any members of the community that are listening, this is I get that people elect us and then often ignore what we do, and these are such big numbers that it's hard to get your head around it. It's easier to get excited about a $50,000 bike lane grant, or, you know, playground or whatever. This is pipes in the ground. It's boring. But it is so critical to us being able to move ahead as a community. And the numbers are absolutely massive. They're just massive. Councillor Skelton Morgan, did you?
I just wanted to address some of the pieces around risk. I mean, when it comes to these finances, and for me, and just knowing families that are struggling right now that are on fixed income, those pieces I know that are really challenging for folks at home. But I think of the absolute worst case scenario if we were to lose some of our main lines, which follows a complete system cativation, and that means collapses where you've got sections of town that have no water. Their properties' values tank. Folks start losing employment and having to go elsewhere, and losing our population overnight. And when you cannot see through the ground where these pipes have ruptured, when it happens at that scale, so for us to be digging up the entire town for years to come, that is an absolute apocalyptic level scenario for us. So to be able to address this now, as gruesome as this is numbers wise, I mean, this tax increase in particular could have been close to 36% or north of 36% if we did not have Prince Rupert Legacy Inc. and City West being able to inject capital for these projects. So for me, again, I've moved the motion, but for me, speaking to it and understanding, the both sides of the coin here, where we have folks that are on fixed income, and for me having, a dependent parent and things like that, and understanding what that means firsthand. But also I think about, and the stuff that keeps many of us up at night is losing our entire system and having our town come to a standstill, and where folks are having to line up at the Civic Center because we're trucking water in like a third world country. Like, it's a pretty gruesome scenario to think about. And for us, like, having these pieces where if we do not address this now, and it's not done now, and we are just to kick the can down the road, as what's happened prior to our time, at this time we can't afford not to. And to just even speak to some of the percentages now, inflation capped out at 8.1%. During last year, with an average about 7.5. So making up for that, we're looking at a 5.5% increase, and that's with the inflation calculations as well. Again, it's a tough position to be in, but at the same time, if we don't do something about this now and start addressing these things now, we're rolling the dice on the future of the entire town.
Thank you. Council, I think you're ready to make your decision. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from members of council? Director Bombin.
What the and part said to do the give direction to staff on alternate approval process or assent, so that we can start preparing documents. I know it'll take a couple months to do the alternate approval process, but if we have to move to assent even after the couple of months come up, it's still quite a lengthy process. So we'd like to get information now, if that's okay.
Okay, Councillor Forster has moved alternate approval. Councillor Randawa is a second. I'm hearing nodding. Anybody? No. Any further comments? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Any comments from members of council? Question? Councillor Forster.
It's Nurses Week. If you know a healthcare worker or a nurse, please take a moment and thank them. Like many first responders, life is not always great. We see people at their worst, and sometimes that can take a toll on our workers. And so this is a week that internationally gets celebrated to highlight the work that nurses do, but don't forget the other healthcare team. So if you have a moment, please thank someone.
Thank you for that reminder. If my neighbors wouldn't complain, I'd still be out there banging the pots and pans at 7 o'clock, because our healthcare workers do amazing stuff, and I'm ever grateful for what they do. Any other comments? Councillor Skelton-Moore.
I just wanted to speak to an event that's taking place tomorrow at the Legion at 6 o'clock. We've got our friends and neighbors down at the Honor House in the Lower Mainland, and that's a not-for-profit and charity that provides free housing for members of the Canadian Forces, veterans, emergency services personnel that are being supported and going through different medical care with the high costs of having to stay down in the Lower Mainland. They put this in place for folks that are on various levels of recovery due to either medical or different other pieces, and just for folks that are first responders or any of those, or have family members that they support in the private or public sector, that I think it's quite important to go and check out and see what they have to offer between the house that they have, but also a ranch, and just kind of connect with different folks that have those services there. And that's on at the Legion tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Great. Just a quick wrap up of the week that passed. I've lost my days. On Wednesday, I was in Victoria meeting with the Premier with the Resource Benefit Alliance co-chairs, impressing once again on the Premier the urgency of that matter. While I was away, we had our first call, the Carnival Miracle. Councillor Skelton Morven went aboard representing the city to do a plaque exchange with the captain and welcome that vessel for the first time. Thursday, I was back and able to get on. Have I got my days right? I do have my days. Yeah, went on board the ship and did the same thing. Friday, I had a chance to meet with some touring medical students coming through the north, not all of them from the north. And they sort of a twofold mission. One is they go to the schools and talk to youth about careers in healthcare. But then the second piece is to introduce these potential doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals to small community living. So they were out at Haida Gwaii, and then they came back, and I had a chance to sit with them. And then I attended the Legion 60th anniversary. 60 years the Legion has been servicing the people of Prince Rupert, and it was a great evening. There were Legion members all the way, Lions members, thank you very much. Lions, I apologize. Lions members all the way up from Vancouver, and there were some new members initiated, which was great to see because service clubs, of course, are challenged these days. But and that was kind of the week that was. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillors Forrester and Skelton Morven, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.